only big companies do business continuity planning. Smaller businesses need this more than bigger businesses. I've worked inside really large companies, and if one person was taken out of the equation, it wouldn't be noticeable because there's so much bench strength built into it. But in a small business, if the owner is taken out of the equation, everything falls apart. Hey, welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. I'm Todd Dawalt here with Monish Cartier, sporting the Construction Leading Edge swag. This may be the very first time CLE merch has been on the podcast. How's it going, Monish?
Yeah, pretty good. Happy to be here. And yeah, it's the first time. I mean, the hat, I think, makes me look slightly better, a bit more handsome. So why not?
Definitely. So I'm in a different spot. I'm in downtown Nashville, Tennessee, speaking at the Converge 24 conference from Foundation Software. So we're in a little different setup. So we're going to be talking about an interesting topic today. Typically, if this is your first time joining the podcast, we're all about systematizing your construction business, helping construction business owners have more freedom, have more impact, have more wealth, get out of firefighting mode so they can truly be the CEO of their business. And today we're going to talk about a real CEO topic. This is something that a lot of people avoid. They don't do, unfortunately. And according to some research I did, only 15% of businesses, 15% of CEOs do this. And this is some big boy, big girl stuff here that the true CEOs need to think about, and all business owners need to think about. And I'll share a couple of stories. I read this post that was written into the Washington Post. Somebody submitted this question to the Washington Post, and here's what it said. I work for a very small luxury travel agency that was already suffering due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The owner of the company recently passed away, and we are heartbroken and completely freaked out. No one has been named next in command, and his family wants nothing to do with the business. We don't even know if we'll be paid out from the accounts. Also, quite a few trips are still booked in the coming months for clients who have zero idea what's going on, and we don't know what we're allowed to tell them. We want to help ensure that our travelers still get to go on their trips, but of course, we can't work for free, and we'll eventually need to find other jobs to pay our bills. Can the company continue without its owner? What's the standard next step when something like this happens? It's weighing on our consciences, and we know the owner would never have wanted to leave these customers high and dry. So this was a question submitted to an attorney who wrote for the Washington Post. And then there's another example of a story I heard from one of our clients we were at a live event a few years ago, and we were at dinner, and one of our clients shared a story of when her father had a heart attack. They were out of town, and father had a heart attack, and she talked about being in the hospital room with her dad in the hospital bed, and he didn't know if he was going to survive. And there they were in the hospital room. He was in bed. His wife had a legal pad, and he is just transcribing, he is dictating things to her. Hey, you need to call this person. Here's how to get into the bank account. I'm just telling her all of this stuff about his business that wasn't documented anywhere else because he wasn't sure if he was going to make it. And that was really, really eye-opening to her. And of course, there's a whole other layer of that situation. Obviously, she was scared that her father was going to pass away, but then there was this whole concern about what's going to happen with the business. And in both cases, both of these situations, there was something that was missing, and it was business continuity planning. The owner of that travel agency had not done any business continuity planning. Unfortunately, our client's dad did not have a plan in place of what's going to happen. How does the business continue if something happens to the owner? And the reality is, it's a couple of realities. One, as I mentioned, only about 15% of business owners have a plan in place. If they are incapacitated, if they pass away. And so 15% of owners have a plan, but 100% of business owners are going to die, right? Guaranteed. There's nobody that's still alive that was born 200 years ago. Every one of us is guaranteed to die. So why is it that only 15% of people have a plan? Why do we avoid this? And then what do we do about it? That's what we're going to talk about today. So here are a few questions to start asking. If you're going to do a quick business continuity audit of your business, we're going to look at it from the owner's perspective. We're going to talk about business continuity if a key employee disappears, is incapacitated, or passes away. And then we'll talk about some practical things that you can do to start making a plan for this. So here are a few questions to ask if you wanted to see how resilient your business is and start doing some business continuity planning. A really good question is, can the business survive without the owner? If someone looked at your business, if you're a business owner, or if you're an employee, you can really look at this, look at your business that you work for the same way. Can the business survive without the owner? What parts of the business are designed to fail without the owner? Unfortunately, a lot of small construction businesses, I'll take that back. A lot of construction businesses, period, are designed to fail without the owner. If the owner goes away, key parts of the business just stop. Sales, design, estimating, operations, financials, key parts of the business just stop because they were never designed to operate without the business. Here's a couple of interesting questions to think about. What happens to the legal entity of the business if the owner passes away? In the US, in most states, a sole proprietorship ceases to operate upon the owner's death. Legally, the business ceases to operate if it's a sole proprietorship. Obviously, other entity types are different, but in most cases, if you have a sole proprietorship, the business just ceases to exist and it stops. If you have some sort of a license, a builder's license or a contractor's license, in many states, death has the effect of automatically and immediately canceling a builder's license.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's the same here in Australia as well.
So if you think about that, without a builder's license, you can't pull permits, you can't execute work. If you're in a region or a state that requires a license, your business stops because the holder of the builder's license passes away. Another question that came up as we went through this with one of our CEO Alliance groups is, what happens to your contracts? If you're working on large projects that might be 12 to 18 months life cycle, what happens to your projects? If you're in the middle of a project, what happens to your subcontract agreements? If the business does continue, in many cases, there's a husband and wife team. Would the spouse want to continue running it? So if something happens to the owner, who's the primary operator, who will run the business?
Well, the question is probably, is the spouse able to do that in the short term? You know, if you have a untimely death, you're not going to be waking up the next morning and going to work. It's not going to happen. So
absolutely. That's a worst case scenario. Yeah. And even if they could, they do have the capacity, they can't. One of the things our client who shared that story about her father having a heart attack, fortunately he was fine. He made it through, but she said something really interesting. She said, if something happened to her husband in their business, she said, I don't think I would have time to properly grieve because there would be so many business obligations I would have to step into. So maybe the spouse has the knowledge, but are they really going to be in a position to run the business? So the question is, if something happens to the owner, death, if you're incapacitated for several weeks at a time, who's going to run the business? What's the emergency action plan? Is there a playbook in place? Does the team know what to do if something happens? And then let's talk about some basic business functions, like the person who wrote in from the travel agency. We want to make sure that we get paid, and there are trips booked out. Clients don't know what's going on. We're not sure what to tell them. So there's some basic business functions like how do you run payroll? Let's say the person who runs payroll passes away and nobody else knows how to do it. People will want to get paid. Subcontractors will want to get paid. What about customers? Who's going to deal with the customers? And who's going to share what happens with them? So those are a few questions that I thought about. Monish, what about you? Any other questions that you would ask if somebody asked you to do a business continuity audit?
Yeah, well, I think, that's with most builders, contractors, subcontractors, most of us don't just own the business, and we don't just own a job in the business. Usually we're wearing multiple hats. And if something like this happens, you're incapacitated for whatever reason. You could be death, could be you had an accident and you're in the hospital for a month or 6 weeks or whatever, unable to speak. Could be something as simple as you getting severely sick with a flu and you're at home for a week, right? Who's doing all these roles that you've been doing the entire time? Who's communicating with clients, with subcontractors? Like you said, who's running payroll? Someone else has to. And if someone else has to step into your position, is there enough documentation to show them where you've left it and what needs to be done next as well? And, it always sounds like this is all kind of catered towards, larger companies probably have this sorted because they've got employees and this and that. But most large companies don't either. Like you've just said, it's 15%. But what's even more critical is the smaller businesses. Like if you've got a family business, or if you're the only, if you're the provider for your family, and that comes from your construction business where you're working 40, 50, 60 plus hour weeks, and all of a sudden you can't do that. What does that mean for your family? And what does that mean for their future, regardless of whether you have a insurance policy or not? I think most people tend to avoid thinking about this stuff. Like it sounds, you think you're invincible, you're never going to die, or you're going to die. Everyone thinks they're going to die of old age or whatever the case may be. But it's simple things like this is a generalized comment, but most, people in construction, especially if you're a construction business owner, there's a good chance that you participate in extracurricular high-risk activities. You probably enjoy sport, hunting, fishing, boating, skiing, all these things that could potentially cause you to have an accident at some point. And it has happened. We've had people here there was an electrical business, for example. We had a prospective client who was purchasing this business, and just before closing, the existing owner went on a hunting trip, fell out of a tree, passed away. And then this business has not been able to the sale has not closed. It's been over 6 months because there was nothing there that people just couldn't find out. So even if you've got that set up, something can happen, something can go wrong, and you end up in that situation. And the family's left to clean up your mess in ways. And, is that the legacy that you want to leave behind? Just a bunch of strewn paperwork across your desk and your family trying to figure out what's what?
Yeah, that's a great question. What kind of legacy do you want to leave, and what sort of experience do you want your family to have if something happens to you? What sort of experience do you want your employees to have if something happens to you? Because look, as I mentioned, this is what CEOs do. Okay, this is what people who own businesses do. They think about their legacy. They don't just think about themselves. They think about their family. They think about their employees. There are a lot of people who depend on a business owner. your employees, their families, their children, their future depends on you, and that's a lot of pressure. But that's what being a business owner is really about. It's not just owning a job. And if you just want to own a job and be a technician who does stuff and has a couple of helpers, then that's great. But if you really want to be a CEO that leaves a legacy and has a business that can survive you, then there are things you need to look at. You need to consider these situations and have plans in place, documented plans, not just thoughts, but actually take action and plan these things.
I think a good question there would be, is your business self-sufficient, or are you your business? Do you own a business, or do you own a job, and multiple jobs, in fact?
Yeah. I think most construction businesses are not self-sufficient. They are not. They're unfortunately designed to fail without the owner. They're a machine that has the owner as an integral part working in the machine. And if something happens to them, the machine just stops, or it may not stop immediately, but it definitely slows down and eventually grinds to a halt because it was designed to run around and through the owner. Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about business continuity from a different angle. What if a key employee is taken out of the mix? If a key employee walks into your office tomorrow and says, "I'm out. Here are my keys. Here's my phone, my computer. I'm out. I'm leaving for whatever reason," or they're incapacitated for a few weeks, or worst case scenario, they pass away. What are some questions that you would ask if you were doing a business continuity audit to deal with that situation, Monish?
Well, that's happened to me a couple of times, not in my business, but when I worked for someone else. On one occasion, I was a PM for a commercial firm, and we were doing a large job. We were actually, the morning off, we had a concrete pour going on, pouring out this basement for a large building in the middle of the central business district. And my superintendent got a phone call from his family. There was a family emergency. He had to leave right then and there. And, obviously I didn't ask too many questions. He left, and it was quite a severe emergency. I don't really want to go into the details, but he was unable to return back to work, which is fine. Like, he's got to take care of his family. But on the flip side, there was no one available to replace him. We didn't have the right processes in place for someone else to come in and just take over his role. So by default, I ended up having to be the PM and the superintendent, and trying to make the best of this project, which wasn't fun. And it kind of sucked because every time someone new was sent to be the superintendent, it was easier just to do it myself instead of trying to get them up to speed, because there was nothing documented, obviously. And that was a pretty good lesson learnt there as well. And there was another occasion where there was with a different business, there was a project manager who was kind of old school, did a lot of handshake deals, and again didn't document his stuff, passed away from a heart attack. And when that happened, turns out he'd made all these agreements with the client for change orders. They were never documented, and it was just a mess when I had to pick that job up to try and clean it up and get it to where it needed to be. And it was a pretty high-end client, so I couldn't drop the ball on that one. So again, lack of documentation. Ideally, if things are documented, something happens to one individual, it's easy, just substitute someone else in. Someone else should be able to come in, pick up where they left off, do the job well, and win, instead of having to figure out where they were, blah, blah, blah. And, as we all know in construction, we don't have the time or the liberty of that time to do that. There's never an opportunity to press pause on existing projects and say, hey, give us a few weeks to catch up and figure out where we're at, and then we'll start again. Just doesn't happen.
Yeah. So it sounds like a couple of things to look at would be, how does this person do their job? If this, whether it's your an estimator, a superintendent, a project manager, your operations manager, your accounts payable person, somebody on your team, you can ask a couple of questions. Okay, if they were to leave, is their process documented? If we did hire somebody, or if somebody had to step in, how do they do their job? Do we know how to do their job? Second, what I heard you say was, can somebody pick up the pieces of where they're at? So is there good documentation of the communication that they've had with clients, subcontractors, et cetera? And one of the problems is if all the communication is happening like through texts and phone calls and emails, it's really hard to piece that puzzle together. That's an interesting
WhatsApp
mystery.
Messages, Facebook messages.
Yeah. I heard one of our clients had a superintendent who passed away during COVID, and they found out that his idea of documentation was he would write stuff on the studs of houses being built. That's where he kept his notes, and not the best source of information. So do you have a single source of information, a single source of truth? Is communication with clients happening in one place, or is it all over the place? Who would step in? Who would pick up the pieces there if somebody happens? Who would fill in the gap, at least temporarily, if that person were to be gone? Who would run payroll? Who would approve invoices? Who would keep things going, at least temporarily? What are some other questions you would ask if you were doing a business continuity audit, from a standpoint of what happens if a key employee is taken out?
I think ask yourself, as a business owner, are you a key employee? Really, at the end of the day, are you occupying a key critical job in the business? Are you a bottleneck? Because a lot of contractors, builders are in that position, and they like to think of themselves as, I know what I'm doing, I'm experienced, I've got this, it's all in my head. I just turn up to work my magic, and everything happens. I don't need to document it. It doesn't need to go down, which is cool until you can't turn up and do that, right? So who's doing your job if you're not doing it? And whether that could be estimating, it could be pre-construction, it could be that you're a project manager, it could be in sales, you're halfway through signing contracts or whatever the case may be. But anything else, working on the business as well, doing your taxes, perhaps getting all your accounting sorted. Who's going to do that while you're away? And what happens if that doesn't get done?
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the ripple effects of what happens when a business owner is incapacitated for an extended period of time, or they pass away. Who else is affected? I think a lot of times we put ourselves in this bubble and we don't want to think about it, which we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But this affects a lot of people, right? If something happens to a business owner, it affects a lot of people. Who are some of the people who are affected if a business owner passes away? What do you think?
Well, looking at just, people in relation to the business, so not family and all that sort of stuff. If something like that happens, what do your employees do, first of all? Because as you used that example with the travel company, all of a sudden the captain of the boat's gone. Who's sailing the boat? What do we do? Who does what? And same with clients. So clients that you've signed contracts with, promises that you've made that you're going to build their home. People that are waiting for their home to be finished so they can move in and things like that. How does that impact them? How does that affect your subcontractors that are expecting payment for work that they've done? And the ripple effect on the families of all those people as well, like your employees, for example, who depend on their jobs to provide for their families, subcontractors who depend on you paying them to provide for their families, and so forth as well. So, and then if your family is a part of your business, how does it affect them too in the long run?
Hey, it's Todd here. And quick question I want you to think about. If something happened to you, would your family have access to all the information they need, like your trust, life insurance, and bank accounts? If you own a business, would someone have access to the information needed to run your business? Could they run payroll? Could they access bank accounts? Who would talk to customers? Would your business even survive if something happened to you? Having the right legal documents and having them where your family can find them is critical in the event of an accident, an emergency, or death. Having immediate access to the information and documents is crucial for your family members to enable them to make the decisions and ensure that they have access to the financial resources you've worked so hard for. Without the right documents in place and without them being in the right structure, your family could face unnecessary stress and financial challenges during what's already a difficult time. There are 42 documents and pieces of information your family will need if something happens to you. We've done the research here and we've talked to the experts and we've put together a legacy planning checklist for you. You can download the legacy planning checklist for free at constructionleadingedge.com/legacy. That's constructionleadingedge.com/LEGACY. We'll also be rolling out a digital legacy vault program soon so you can have all of this critical information in a secure digital location. So to get your legacy planning checklist and to be notified when we roll out the digital legacy vault, head on over to constructionleadingedge.com/legacy. Yeah, it has far-reaching ripple effects. Yeah, and just imagine if you passed away and then your spouse had to step up to the plate and try to run things in that situation. Just think about everything they're dealing with from the personal standpoint. Then on top of that, there are all these obligations and things that have to happen on the business side. And it would just be overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming to have to deal with that. Yeah.
And you want to put yourself in their shoes because it's easy to kind of avoid thinking about this and going, oh, what do I care? I'll be dead. I won't have to deal with it, which is, very selfish in a way because you don't really want to leave your family, your employees, people that you do genuinely care about. You don't want to leave them in that position because not only are they now left without you in their lives, but they also have to clean up your mess that you've left for them. And that may change how they feel about you when you're gone. Right. Something as simple as not finding your insurance policy or your business's insurance policy, for example.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about this. Why don't people want to think about this? Why do only 15% of business owners have a plan in place? There's some misconceptions, I think, that we need to deal with, some things we want to shine the light on and expose. So I jotted a couple of reasons down. I'm curious what you think, Monish. First of all, it's overwhelming to think about. Where do I start? And you can start thinking about it, start making a plan. It just becomes overwhelming. And then when we get overwhelmed, we typically just bounce to something else that's a much more positive topic. I can't imagine a worse topic to talk about. I can't imagine an easier thing to procrastinate on and avoid because this sucks. This is really hard, overwhelming, and we just jump to something else. I think there's a tendency when it comes to business continuity that there's this thought, you know what, we'll figure it out on the fly, or my team will figure it out. My family will figure it out. There's this mindset, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, right? We're so busy right now. We'll just cross that bridge when we get there. And that's really that, it goes back to that just enough to start mentality that we talk a lot about, doing just enough to get by, just enough to get things started. I think there's a misconception that it's too expensive to make plans, hire an attorney. We don't have time for that. This is probably very common. I'm really busy. I don't have time to do that right now. And there's probably some element, you know what, in the future, I'll have more time to do that. I'll do it, just not right now. We'll do that next month, next quarter. We'll do that when things are slow. And then the next month or the next quarter, when things slow down, when that comes around, then there's always something else to do. And then one we may have touched on is only big companies need to do this. We're a small business. Only big companies do business continuity planning. But as you pointed out, smaller businesses need this more than bigger businesses. I've worked inside really large companies, and if one person was taken out of the equation, it wouldn't be noticeable because there's so much bench strength built into it. But in a small business, if the owner is taken out of the equation, everything falls apart. So if you think, well, that's something big companies do, the reality is small companies, small businesses need to do it even more than big companies. What else? What are some other misconceptions you can think of, Monish, or why don't people want to think about this topic?
Well, it's morbid, isn't it? And it's like you said, it's like the lowest priority because there's so much more going on right now. There's the daily firefighting that's going on. I don't even have time to consider this because I'm dealing with this right now, which is a red flag in itself. Because if you can't simply get out of the day-to-day, it's even more critical and important that you have this set up so that someone else is being able to do that. And exactly what you said, it's a misconception that it's only the larger people, the larger companies that have these sort of plans. But if you're a small family business, something happens and you can't provide for your family because the business is your only source of income, that's a significant issue. And if you don't have a plan for your business to continue without you, it has significant impacts on your family moving forward.
Yeah.
Your kids might miss out on college because you died and the business couldn't continue. Whereas if you set it up for it to continue on without you, it leads to a much better life, much easier life for your family moving forward as well, especially with your absence, if that's the case.
So let's talk about how do you make your business more resilient so it will survive if something happens to you? How do you begin to think about creating a business continuity plan? And you said something that just before we hit record that I'd like you to expand on. You said that one of the first things you need to do is separate your identity from the business. Can you talk about that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think with most contractors, you are the business, right? You don't see any delineation between the business being a separate entity to yourself because you probably came from the operations side, you set the business up, you've started it from ground up, and you've just built it up to whatever level it is at now. But you're probably still the face of the business, the first point of contact. You're the guy that does everything or the girl that does everything. And you've made yourself into a bottleneck because you have that perspective that, you're well and truly aware that without you, the business is going to fail. So it's important to separate that identity and respect that the business has its own identity. And you can make the business self-sufficient to actually run without you. That should be the idea. And the upside, the reason why you started the business in the first place is because you were ambitious, you were skilled, experienced, you could actually sell your services and people would pay for them because the services were good. They were high quality, you were reputable and all that sort of thing. But when you apply all those characteristics to your business kind of depends on you to bring those characteristics in. And you think that you have to remain there for the business to have those characteristics, but that's not the case. You want your clients to commend your business, not you as an individual. Mm-hmm. Your clients are paying your business for your team to deliver their project, not just you as an individual. That's what you ideally want to build, because then at that point, it's not just in an unfortunate event that you pass away or something happens to you, that you're not a part of the business anymore. It could just be that the business is set up that you're still alive and well, and the business doesn't need you as much as you think it does. And maybe a good technique to help with that is to start thinking of yourself as lazy and incompetent, because that changes that perspective. If you're lazy and incompetent, you can't be the go-to guy for everything because you're not good enough. But if you always think of yourself as the best employee your business has, well, guess what? You're always going to be the go-to guy for everything.
Yeah, I like that approach. I heard somebody use that example of, I think what he said was, most millionaires are incompetent. And the example he shared was, if I owned a high-end restaurant and my chef quit or something happened to my chef, I would not try to step in and cook because I'm not a chef. I would never try that. I'm incompetent. So I have to go find a replacement. Whereas if I think I can cook, if I think I'm competent, then I'll step into the kitchen, sharpen my knives, and I'll try to fill in. And then I'm stuck cooking, doing something I'm not that great at, and it's definitely not business owner level activity. So yeah, I like that. Think of yourself as incompetent, and you have to take yourself out of the equation. So I think in general, a really good approach to make your business resilient is go ahead and design your business to run without you now.
Correct.
Make your business run without you now. Then that was the result. That was the conclusion we came to in our CEO Alliance. We spent a few hours brainstorming, or what do we do in case one of you passes away? And it became very apparent that the simple answer, what made it simpler is the fewer hats you wear, the simpler it is if something happens to the owner. The less involved you are, the easier that transition is. So the mindset to take is, if you want your business to be resilient and you want it to be in good shape if something happens to you, then you need to design it intentionally to run without you now. So what that looks like is...
Go on, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and then you can hypothetically, take yourself out of the equation. You've got the freedom then to incapacitate yourself and go away and do something else and not have to be in touch. And I was just going to bring up, there was we had a client by the name of Alex Knapp, who owns Minneapolis Decks, who's gone through our SYCB program. He's currently in the CEO Alliance, and he scheduled a one-on-one coaching call with me for next week. And there's a questionnaire that goes out into the booking, which asks Alex, what questions do you have for me related to the content you'd like to cover during our one-on-one call? Because this usually sets the stage as to what we want to talk about. And his answer to that is, best places to vacation in Australia now that I don't have to be in the office 80 hours a week. And he wants to have a coaching call just to figure out where he wants to go traveling next, instead of talking about things in the business, which is a great place to be, because he's set himself up for that. And by the way, he's currently on a cruise. He's on a 3-week cruise with limited internet. So I'm very happy to hear that. But my point there being, having the freedom to make that choice to go away from the business. spend time with your family, spend time doing volunteering or whatever you want to do. Spend time going on a hunting trip for a week where no one can get in touch with you. You can do all those things while you're alive and well if you set your business up so it doesn't need you.
Yeah. So
you don't have to die for it.
Yeah. A good step, a good exercise would be what I would, if somebody came to me and said, Todd, I want my business to run without me. I would say, all right, step one is go book some non-refundable tickets for a 2-week trip to another country. And the reason for that is you book that trip, you're committed. And there's this concept I like called commit, then calculate. Typically what we do is we calculate before we commit. But using this commit, then calculate concept, you buy the tickets and then you're going to calculate. You'll figure out how to do it. So if you want your business to run without you, book a trip 6 months in advance. You're going to be gone for 2 weeks. You're going to leave your laptop and your phone at home, maybe your laptop, and then figure out what would it take? What do we need to do to this business? How can we design it so I could be gone for 2 weeks? And be intentional about that. Design your business. It will require you to look at the structure of the business, establish roles and responsibilities, take roles and responsibilities off your plate and put it onto somebody else's. You'll need to document processes. You'll need to get things out of your head, and you'll need to have a plan in place to do that. So I think that's a great exercise, and commit to it, then calculate, because the reality is this is never going to interrupt your day. If you're the business owner, there's never going to be urgency on your part to do this planning. There's always going to be something more urgent. So you need to fabricate some urgency that will force you to go through this effort and design your business intentionally. And then there's some practical things to look at in case you are gone. There are some questions you need to ask, like what information will your survivors or your employees need access to? Login information, bank account information, access to software. There's information they'll need, insurance, contacts, banking contacts. They need to have, there's a lot of information that needs to be available at their fingertips, not meaning they have to spend weeks digging through things to try to find it. And then you need to answer the question, who will run the operation if you're gone? If you go back to that question that was written to the Washington Post, they said, we don't know what we're allowed to tell the customers. No one has been named next in command. His family wants nothing to do with the business. What happens? So have a plan. Sort of like in the military, they have emergency action plans, and have a plan. If this happens, you pull this playbook off the shelf. You have it in a place where people can find it. It says this is who's in charge. If something happens, here's what to do step by step. Call this person, avoid this person, make sure and communicate this, and just give people a step-by-step plan to follow. And then I'm curious what you think about this, Monish. Recently, we've been talking a lot about this concept of who, not how. When there's a problem you need to solve, typically we ask, well, how am I going to do that? How am I going to find time to do that? How am I going to learn how to do that? How am I going to figure that out? But a better question to ask would be, who can help me with this? Who can do this for me? Who can I ask for this? And think who, not how. What do you think, Manish? How might that, how does the who, not how concept apply here, if at all? What do you think?
Well, it helps you to fold time and utilize experts instead of you learning something, doing something imperfectly, and it taking significantly longer. Let's talk about this as an example. So if you were to build a new home, a custom home from the ground up, right? Would you decide to do every single thing yourself? And if you were to do that, how much longer would that take compared to if you were like, all right, I'm just going to be the project manager for this, and I'm going to hire a team of carpenters, framers, subcontractors that do electrical, plumbing, people that specialize in each one of those fields. How much quicker is that job going to go? How much better is the end product going to be? Because they all are experts in their field. And you get to a built home probably 10 to 20 times quicker than if you were going to say, I'm going to do all this on my own, right? It's the same approach to everything else in life. Go hire people that specialize in certain things. Like most people probably hire a CPA. You don't do your taxes yourself, right? Because you don't know everything about the tax system. It'd be silly to assume that I'm going to do this myself and get it right every single time. So you hire a CPA. CPA specializes in that. And it's the same thing. Like unless you grow your own food and all that sort of stuff, right? Like again, you go to the shops, you buy food that someone else has grown because they're better at it. They're quicker at it. And it's a quicker outcome for you. So ideally, if you take that approach to everything in your business as well, going to an expert and getting the experts together, you can get to your outcome a lot quicker and it'll be a better result because you've utilized experts instead of you learning something, figuring out how to use it, then following the process. It just takes way longer than it would have.
Why do you think construction business owners want to do everything themselves? I was that way. I was definitely a how, not who kind of a guy. I think most people are. Why do you think, why is it that construction business owners just want to figure out everything themselves? Like they want to do their own bookkeeping. Think it's ego?
I think it's ego. I can only speak for myself, I suppose. But, there's always the attitude that why trust someone else to do it? Because they may not do it well and then I'm going to have to fix it anyway. I may as well just do this thing myself because at some point in time, you've done that once, you trusted someone else once, they didn't do it right. And from then on, you decided I'm never doing this again. I'm never trusting someone else to do this job again. I'm just going to do it myself. One of the, for people that have come up on the field side or the operation side, one of the things that bugs all of us is having to fix someone else's mistakes, right? If you're ever framing a job and you've done your bit exceptionally well and now you've got to fix someone else's mistakes, it's incredibly frustrating because you just wish they just did it right in the first place. Like I shouldn't be here fixing your stuff. I'd rather go and do mine. So it's probably that attitude's kind of ingrained in you and you turn into a business owner, a CEO, eventually, but you never drop that attitude. You hang on to that. But what makes you a good carpenter, a good plumber, a good electrician is not going to make you a good CEO. Completely different set of skills.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a big part of it. I think also there's a part of it is the scarcity mindset. I can't afford to pay somebody to do this. I have to do it myself. It's cheaper for me to do it. There's not enough money. I can't find somebody. So I'm just going to muscle through it. I think part of it is also it's probably something with all entrepreneurs, because all entrepreneurs, we all had to bootstrap our businesses at some point to get it to a certain level. But then that bootstrapping mindset works up to a certain point, but then what got you here isn't going to get you to the next level. And at a certain point, that bootstrapping, I'm going to do everything myself mindset becomes the limiting factor. You become the bottleneck. That mindset becomes the bottleneck, and you have to let go of that stuff at a certain point and start thinking who, not how, and realize that when I get the right who's involved, that frees me up to do the things that are my areas of genius, my unique abilities, where I can really make money. Like, I'm not going to make any money working on my website. I'm not going to make any money doing my taxes. I'm not going to make money doing stuff I'm not good at and I don't enjoy. And we have to realize that as entrepreneurs, that at a certain point, you got to start thinking who, not how, and then it'll pay for itself, because you can go do other things that you're better at, and you will enjoy more and are actually profitable for you. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It's actually about valuing your time. So like you said, you wouldn't go and build your own website because it's going to take you so much longer. And let's be honest, you're probably not an IT guy, so you're not going to do a great job. Whereas you probably haven't even explored how much it may cost you for someone else to do that. Like, it may be a few $100. It might be $300, $400 for someone to go through and do that. And instead of you spending 20 hours, 30 hours, you could be spending that time on something else that's actually profitable.
Yeah.
So it's about having that mentality.
And it's probably going to be a lot better if somebody else does it. More than likely, if you do it yourself, if you don't like it and you suck at it, you're going to waste a lot of time. It's still not going to be good at the end, and you're just going to have a mess. You're going to be frustrated, and you will have incurred all of this opportunity cost as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's land on this. Let's talk about this. What's in it for an owner to go through this process? What's in it for an entrepreneur, business owner, to go through this process of doing the brain damage, doing this uncomfortable process that's time consuming, to fight through the overwhelm and the avoidance and the procrastination to do this? What are the positive ripple effects of them proactively doing this? What do you think?
Well, I think you're planning for the worst case scenario, right? But once that plan's in place, like I was saying earlier, you've got the freedom to then utilize that plan for pleasure. So if there is a continuity plan, everything's set up correctly, you can take time off and not worry about the business collapsing in your absence because you've set it up that way. So, you can actually, if you set it up for the worst case scenario, you can actually enjoy the benefits that provides. So when, like you were saying, do the exercise of booking a 2-week vacation a few months from now, think of it this way. Like, if you wanted to go on a vacation, on a 2-week vacation next week when no one's able to contact you, is that possible? Is that feasible for your business to operate without you? And if the answer is no, then you can't go on vacation. And how many years has it been since you went on vacation? Because you're not able to. And when you go on vacation, your phone's ringing all the time and all that sort of stuff. So think of the positives that you can actually enjoy in your life if you set the business up for the worst case scenario.
Yeah. That's probably a much better way to frame it. It's more like, hey, let's design your business so you have freedom. And then, by the way, when you've done that, you're set up for business continuity. That's probably more exciting. I've heard it said, everybody's favorite radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me? Well, what's in it for you while you're alive is freedom. And you can actually enjoy the benefits of this by being proactive. And then the side effect is your business is set up for success in case something happens.
Another thing too is if your business is set up with a continuity plan, which obviously doesn't include you because you might be dead or whatever the case may be, it is also then naturally set up for someone else to purchase it because it's a viable business that is self-sufficient. It's not a job that you own that you're trying to sell to someone else. So it becomes easier to market and sell your business if that is a part of your succession plan.
Yes, that's a great point. Most construction businesses have no value because without the owner, they don't operate. So having a business that is sellable, or talk to a lot of people who are later on in their career and they don't necessarily want to sell the business, but they want it to run without them so it funds their retirement lifestyle. And that's what this will do for you. And retirement doesn't have to happen at 65. It can happen at 55, 45. Why not go ahead and set your business up so it funds your lifestyle, so it becomes a source of wealth, source of freedom, source of impact before you retire, before you are 65 years old, before conventional, traditional retirement age. Yeah. Another one that comes to mind, another ripple effect, is employee confidence. Employees, they may not ever ask this question. It's very rare that somebody's going to say, "Hey, boss, I'm curious. If you get hit by a bus, what's going to happen to us? Am I going to get paid?" Very few will be that direct, but I'll bet they're wondering, I wonder what's going to happen if something happens to the boss. We're pretty dependent on this gal, and I don't know what would happen. She seems to do everything, and I think we're probably at risk here. So you're by having this plan in place and then communicating with your employees, like, look, this is what happens. In case of emergency, break the glass. Here's the emergency plan. We have everything set. Then your employees are going to be much more confident. They'll have peace of mind, more likely to stick around. I can tell you, I worked in a company where the owner did not have any plans in place. He was approaching 70 years old, and I was pretty concerned about what would happen if something ever happened to him. And I knew I would not stick around if that ever happened, because there was no plan. The other thing that comes to mind that I've heard from folks who have talked about this, why they want to do this, is just to have peace of mind. It just gives them the idea of having these plans in place, gives them tremendous peace of mind that their families will be taken care of, their employees and their families will be taken care of. It gives them the peace of mind that I've done my job as the CEO. This is something that only the CEO of the business can do, and I've done my job. And that gives them a great peace of mind. What do you think? Are there other positive ripple effects that an owner can expect to experience by going through this process?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, like the peace of mind, just knowing, if what happens if something were to happen as a worst case scenario. I think that pretty much sums it up, because if you're stuck in the day-to-day firefighting, if there is no plan whatsoever, there probably is, unfortunately, a lot of uncertainty. You're not sure exactly how much profit you're going to make and all that sort of thing as well. But when you start planning for this worst case scenario, it pretty much forces you to think all those things through as well. So it should make it a lot easier for you. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thanks, Monish. Appreciate you taking the time to talk about this topic and share. So, folks, if you are interested in putting systems in place for your business, getting it set up to run without you, or specifically putting some business continuity planning in place to make sure you've gathered all the information that you need, then stick around. And at the end of this episode, we'll be sharing some resources for you and some next steps to take there. So, Monish, the hat looks great, man. Thanks. Hey, it's Todd here. And quick question I want you to think about. If something happened to you, would your family have access to all the information they need, like your trust, life insurance, and bank accounts? If you own a business, would someone have access to the information needed to run your business? Could they run payroll? Could they access bank accounts? Who would talk to customers? Would your business even survive? if something happened to you. Having the right legal documents and having them where your family can find them is critical in the event of an accident, an emergency, or death. Having immediate access to the information and documents is crucial for your family members to enable them to make the decisions and ensure that they have access to the financial resources you've worked so hard for. Without the right documents in place and without them being in the right structure, your family could face unnecessary stress and financial challenges during what's already a difficult time. There are 42 documents and pieces of information your family will need if something happens to you. We've done the research here and we've talked to the experts and we've put together a legacy planning checklist for you. You can download the legacy planning checklist for free at constructionleadingedge.com/legacy. That's constructionleadingedge.com/LEGACY. We'll also be rolling out a digital legacy vault program soon so you can have all of this critical information in a secure digital location. So to get your legacy planning checklist and to be notified when we roll out the digital legacy vault, head on over to constructionleadingedge.com/legacy. Hey, it's Todd here. And one more thing before you go. Look, if you own a construction business and you want to put the right systems in place so you can either scale it up, maybe you want to step away from it, be able to take a proper vacation, maybe you want to sell it someday, maybe you just want to have more freedom, or maybe make it more profitable, or maybe you just want to get out of constant firefighting mode and make your phone stop ringing all the time. You really have three options if you want to make a meaningful change in your business. Option one is do nothing. Status quo, keep doing the same things, getting the same results. Option two, you can DIY it. You can do it yourself. You can reinvent the wheel. You can read books, listen to podcasts, try to piece together a solution, use trial and error. Or option number three, if you want meaningful change, is to find a proven system that delivers the results you're looking for. Sort of like if you use software for project management or for your bookkeeping. I assume you probably didn't try to code your own software. You found a proven system that delivered the results you're looking for, right? Well, if you're looking for a proven system to systematize your business, we've helped hundreds of construction business owners implement our systems in their business, specifically our nail the handoff pre-construction process in their business. It works for home builders, remodelers, commercial general contractors. It also works really well for trade contractors like electricians, concrete contractors, site, utility, plumbing. And it's part of our Systematize Your Construction Business program. So if you want to see what systematizing your business looks like, what nailing the handoff looks like, and the positive side effects that come with that, then the next step would be to schedule a free business evaluation call with my team. And you can do that by going to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, or just go to our website, constructionleadingedge.com, and tap the Apply Now button. You'll learn about the 5-step process we've helped hundreds of people implement to systematize their construction business. Most importantly, you'll get an objective third-party evaluation of your business to answer one really big question. Is your business designed to fail, or is it designed to succeed? So let me ask you this. If your business was unintentionally designed to fail, when would you rather find out? Now, while there's time to do something about it, or later on when it's maybe too late? This business evaluation call is totally free. There are no strings attached, no pressure. And it could be the best hour you've spent working on your business in a long time. So our schedule fills up pretty quickly. So if you're interested, go over to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, or go to constructionleadingedge.com and tap the Apply Now button to book your business evaluation call. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got value out of this podcast. If you could take a moment, if you did, and leave a rating or a review or share this with somebody who needs to hear it, I would appreciate it. I'm Todd Dawalt from Construction Leading Edge. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.